Thank you. We want to welcome you to the second regional report of our war on drugs. We're coming to you live this evening from the Donald R. Warsh Auditorium in Garden Grove, California High School. Now, this evening's War on Drugs dialogue is a joint effort of the International Broadcasting Network, KPZE AM Radio, and Talk Back with Bob Larson. In a moment, you're going to be meeting some of the top celebrities in Hollywood, and you're going to have an interesting time. However, I want to talk with you just for a moment about how we became involved in what we're calling the war on drugs. It was last September that I watched President and Mrs. Reagan on television challenging Americans to become involved in a personal effort in their communities, in their churches, in their homes. And we at the International Broadcasting Network and on Talk Back with Bob Larson determined we wanted to be part of this campaign. We wanted to help wage this war, and we wanted to stand with the president in this effort to make sure that we could have someday, by God's grace, a drug-free America. Many of you who listen to Talk Back with Bob Larson have heard me talking about Mother Hale in Harlem. This lady is remarkable. At 81 years of age, she cares for drug-addicted babies. And when a baby comes to Mother Hale's home, in many cases abandoned by the natural biological mother, it is Mother Hale who, during the first 4 months that the baby is there, cares for that baby, looks after it, and nurtures it, and even allows the baby to sleep in her own bedroom and takes care of it all night long. Holding those precious little drug-addicted babies in my arms, I became convinced that we at Talk Back with Bob Larson and the International Broadcasting Network had to do something to win this war on drugs. And that's why every weekday afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, from 1 to 3 p.m. here in Anaheim, you have heard me say we must win the war on drugs. One mother, one baby, one person at a time. We are committed to doing that, and that is one of the reasons that we are here this evening, to talk to you about the Hollywood High. These people that you're going to be meeting tonight are concerned about the drug problem in America, and they have privately waged their own war on drugs. Some of these are people who have been there. They've watched what drugs have done to their friends, and they know what they're talking about. Now, those of you here in the auditorium are going to have an opportunity, if you would like to later, to ask them questions about the Hollywood High. President Reagan, not long ago, castigated the movie industry by saying they started down a road they'd been on before with alcohol abuse. I can remember when it was rather commonplace in films to portray drunk scenes as being very humorous. The motion picture industry decided some time ago that that wasn't right for them to do, and they stopped. Yet recently, there have been some pictures in which there was a gratuitous scene in there just for a laugh about drug use that made it look kind of attractive and funny, not dangerous and sad. End of quote, President Ronald Reagan. Rags like the National Enquirer, as well as respectable newspapers, periodically carry stories of overindulgence in alcohol and dabbling in drugs on and off the screen. Some think the tragic death of John Belushi was just one of many untold sagas of show business self-destruction. TV Guide reported that drugs contributed to the failure of the highly touted series Square Pegs. Louise Lasser, Richard Dreyfuss, Mackenzie Phillips are just a few among the parade of actors who have made their way into drug treatment centers. Directors and producers have pleaded guilty to possession of cocaine. And drugs have destroyed the lives of more people in Hollywood than some actors and actresses would want to admit. They have been blamed for serious accidents involving major entertainment figures. And in the minds of many, doing drugs has become part of show business culture. Moviegoers wonder how much of the creativity coming from Hollywood comes from cocaine. Worse yet, tales abound of directors and producers who trade in drugs just to keep writers and actors happy. Some say behind the camera crews use drugs on the set. to cope with the long hours of boredom which are interrupted with periods of frenetic activity. A guest columnist in USA Today magazine, newspaper, evaluated Hollywood's fascination with drugs this way, and I quote, "Half the brain cells in Hollywood are being zapped by controlled substances, and most of those craniums weren't crammed with brain matter in the first place. Hollywood is zonked out from top to bottom. You'll find pot, pill, and powder users, beginning with front office moguls right down through the gappers, grips, and gophers," end of quote. Well, this evening, I want you to set gossip, rumor, and tabloid tales aside and hear firsthand from some people on the screen. Maybe even some people you've invited into your home via television. They are concerned about the Hollywood high, the coke connection, and the creative careers that are being snuffed out by drug overindulgence. Now, theirs is no head-in-the-sand attitude. They are outspoken. They care about their craft and their community of fellow actors and actresses. And I want you to warmly welcome each of them. Now, there are three basic areas that we're going to cover this evening. First of all, life at the top. Is the grass really greener in Hollywood? Secondly, life on the screen. Has Hollywood finally taken us too far? One toke over the line? And thirdly, life in real life. Does anyone really care about taming the Hollywood high? And now I want to introduce to you this evening the special guest that we have. First of all, an Hispanic actor who most recently was seen as a co-star with Clint Eastwood in Heartbreak Ridge. His name is Mike Gomez. Mike, would you come out and would you give Mike a hand, please? Mike, I want to thank you for joining with us this evening.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Drugs.
Yes.
Have you ever used them?
Never.
Why not?
Well, I was raised, first of all, I think in a very strong family environment. Mm-hmm. And I come from a family of 12. And my parents, especially my mother, were very, very strong about giving us a very strong family support unit, full of love and full of a wonderful home environment. And I think that has a lot to do with people who decide to use drugs. It's something that's very important. So I've never had that problem, thank God.
You have seen fellow actors and actresses who've used drugs?
I have had friends that have used drugs, let me put it that way. Mm-hmm. And I've seen the damage that it can do. And I've seen innocent young people that have got involved in drugs and that have literally messed up their lives. I think it's something it's very easy to get into if you're not careful. I think parental supervision has a lot to do with it.
Tell me about Heartbreak Ridge, just to change the subject here. How did you get involved in that film?
Well, I auditioned just like everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
most of the actors in the film, well, actually all of them.
Would Clint Eastwood really rather be back in Carmel rather than doing movies?
I think Clint's got a real secret desire to continue acting. He's a wonderful person and a wonderful director, and he's a joy to work with.
Okay, I also want to welcome on stage this evening a young lady who has starred in a number of Broadway musicals, more recently in 42nd Street on Broadway, and she's been also in several television productions, including the soap opera Another World. Would you welcome Gail Boggs? Thank you, Gail. I can see that you, this isn't television, but for the radio audience, you decided to dress yourself in the most conservative attire possible. Gail, why don't you buckle up your boots?
That's what my parents keep asking me that.
You're going to trip and fall over those things.
I think they have a mind of their own by now.
I have to describe you for the first of all, you're a beautiful black lady. You have this hat with a
chauffeur's
Yes, a chauffeur's hat with a scarf hanging out of one side. And These boots.
And the pantsuit also.
Pantsuit, you've got these straps. Well, you certainly live up to the Hollywood image of eccentricity.
Well, see, I'm a New Yorker.
Oh, well, that's different then.
Yeah, and New Yorkers, we dress the way we feel. At least I do. I dress the way I feel, and I feel more relaxed when I'm in something that I'm comfortable instead of the high heels and the skirt, the bustier, the hair, the fluff, you know.
What's the strongest things you ever smoked or drank?
Drank tequila. Out here, margaritas are popular.
What have you smoked?
Marlboro Lights, and I've smoked marijuana before. But
Why? Why did you do it?
Because I was interested to see when you see a lot of people around and they try it. And I did, and I found out it wasn't for me. I didn't like it. I wasn't being myself anymore.
Are there any continuing pressures for you to do that?
Pardon?
Are there any continuing pressures for you to smoke
Oh,
marijuana?
no, if I see people doing it, it's something I would not participate in. I tried it once. I did not like it.
But there must be a temptation for you to do it now.
No.
Not at all.
No.
You've got such a beautifully radiant smile. You don't need anything else to get high.
That's
you look
exactly.
pretty high on life to me, just the way it is.
With the clothes that I wear, people usually ask me, they say, "Can I have what you heard you're on?" And I'm like, I'm myself.
Okay. I want you to also welcome an actor who has recently been on the Colbys and Dynasty. He has a brand new film coming out in 1968. Or at least in 1987, the film was called 1968, but we're back in the future. I want you to welcome Eric Larson, would you please? Thank you, Eric. I'm going to have to give a backstage instruction. I need my house mic turned up a little bit, and somebody cut these cordless mics off over here because we are picking up a local something or other here that is, that's what you people in the audience are listening to. This is live radio, and when things like this happen, there's nothing we can do about it. Cut those off, would you please, and I'll work with this, and give me a little more volume on this house mic. Eric, thank you for being with us here this evening.
It's my pleasure.
Drugs. You don't look like a druggie.
I'm not, thank you. And that's probably why I feel so good too, is that I've never done drugs.
Your friends?
Yes, I have friends that do drugs. And when I'm with them and they're doing drugs, I simply say no.
Hasn't somebody ever told you that your creativity would be enhanced, that you might be a better actor and have a lot more energy on the set if you did drugs?
Yes.
Yeah, I see Gail over here nodding her head at that. Yeah, they told you that.
Just last week, as a matter of fact.
Who said it to you? You don't have to give us a name. Who said it to you?
A friend of mine.
A friend?
Well, he is a friend in spite of the fact that...
What did he say to you?
He said, I don't mean to sound like a drug addict, but you should try some drugs sometime. I believe he was talking about acid.
So what'd you say?
I said I'd rather experiment on myself with what I have up here
in your head,
between my ears. Yes.
Okay. We have someone else with us. You know him as Reverend Reuben Gregory. Frustrating that poor deacon. Saturday nights on Amen. I want you to welcome Clifton Davis as he joins us. Thank you. Hi, Clifton. Now, according to People magazine, you're not a disinterested observer in the drug phenomenon. You, at one time, had a real serious problem with cocaine.
That's very true.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
Well, in brief, I, very candidly used cocaine and other drugs for many, many years. And only a little off and on. And in the last couple of years, when things were falling apart, I really became hooked and spent a lot of money on it.
You're a pastor in real life.
Now, I say the last couple of years. I meant the last couple of years that I used it.
Yeah.
It's been 6 years, thank God.
You've been clean.
Yeah.
Now, you're a preacher in real life.
That's for sure.
As well as on the screen. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm an associate pastor at the Loma Linda University Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I do all kinds of things. I sing and preach there, and
I had the privilege of speaking there myself about 10 years ago.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Marvelous.
Back while you were doing coke.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. I was.
You probably don't remember. What's the difference between being clean and thinking straight and just being jazzed up on coke? What is the essential difference in the way you look at life?
Well, I can only give this one person's opinion, Bob, but the difference is the difference between fantasy and reality. One cannot have a very honest and perceptive concept of life when your mind is distorted with mind-tempering drugs. I mean, these things can really twist the mind to such a degree that you become paranoid, you become you're afraid of every little thing, and that is not life, that's death. That's a walking death. So the difference is really a life and death matter.
All right, let's take a look, first of all, at life at the top. What's it like to be famous, to be on the screen, to be something? This is Bob Larson. I'm declaring war on drugs. Together, you and I can win this war, one mother, one baby at a time. Help me furnish the Mother Hale home in Harlem, where drug-addicted babies can be rebonded with their mothers. Will you heed Mother Hale's plea for help?
The mother's having a second like a human being, not out begging for money or anything like that. This is wonderful. This is God's work, and I know He's going to open it. Not only asking them, begging them.
Enlist now in the war on drugs by sharing your gift of $25 or more. Write Box 36A, Denver, Colorado, 80236. In response, I'll send you my special cassette, Winning the War on Drugs. Let's win the war, one mother, one baby at a time. Hi, this is Bob Larson. What happens to babies of mothers who use drugs? Father Paul heads a hospice where people come to die. Recently, he was brought a baby whose mother was an addict.
Just before Christmas, we had a little baby admitted who was 3 months old. Had a perfect little 3-month-old body, but it had a very enlarged head. The head had only one eye up in the right corner, and then a nose-mouth orifice in the lower left corner, and an ear over by the neck. And it was born from a mother who'd been on drugs.
We must win the war on drugs for babies like this. Enlist now with your gift of $25 or more. Write Box 36A, Denver, Colorado, 80236. Together, we can win this war. One mother, one baby at a time. Let's make sure no more babies enter this world addicted and deformed. That's Box 36A, Denver, 80236.
I just came in late.
That's all right.
Gail, what you said is absolutely right. Just some people cannot deal with that. And it's because of who they are, what their ego situation is, what their foundation is in their lives. I disagree with the other fellow about the abnormality. See, for a star, stardom is normal. You see, it's normal for us to be looked at, to be, applauded, it's normal. But it's an abnormal life. Yet for us, it's normal, so that it seems abnormal. Now, what, for me, the problem is not all just one of those things, but all of those things, and principally, what is the foundation of that human being's life? What are they building their hopes on? What has real meaning for them? And if that thing that has meaning for them is themselves, then when they're not doing well, their whole world is falling apart. If it's finance, then if they don't have the money, then their world is falling apart. In other words, if you're building your life on material things, then things fall apart, and one sees drugs as an excuse, as a way out, as somehow a reason to change their life. And
okay, Eric, you're on your way up.
Yes.
Yeah, you're a young actor.
Yeah.
You're just getting started. You're going to be able to handle it?
Well, what I find happens is that people are telling me now, don't change. I knew you way back when, so don't change. What I find that happens a lot of times is the people around you change. Their attitude changes. When you're still the same, they see you in a different light. They see now all of a sudden you're seen by millions of people, you're heard by millions of people. They don't think you're the same person.
In what ways?
Well, they think that
You still have to brush your teeth. You still perspire like the rest of us. Yeah. You still get dirty socks. I mean,
I'm wondering.
latrine.
Yeah, I'm wondering what's going to happen next week. You know, I've been unemployed. I've had a job. Unemployed again. I had a job. I'm still. I'm wondering what's happening still. Now, when I'm down and things are bad, that's the one thing that I can rely on myself, is that I don't have to have a crutch like drugs.
Well, what about the ups and downs of the industry, Gail?
I'd say about the successful person, where Clifton said when the jobs weren't coming in steadily and everything like that, or Eric says he doesn't know where the next job might be coming from. But the successful, like your young Brat Pack type, who has all of these movies and offers, and then all of a sudden these people come out of nowhere and they're saying that. No, they're saying, come on, let's party. Come on, let's do this, let's do that, let's go here, let's go there. And you're on a whirlwind, you're on a merry-go-round. I mean, you can go to a restaurant and all of a sudden the owner will say, oh, free drinks for everyone. And you're not just talking about cocaine and marijuana, you're talking about alcohol also. Free drinks for everyone. We had so-and-so at our restaurant, or whatever. And then all of a sudden things are being given to you. You don't even have to look for it. It comes out of the woodwork. People want to find you. They want to have something to have on you. They want to find your weaknesses so they can control you, because you become a very powerful person once you become a star. You can say, I want this person in my movie. I want that person to direct. So you have power. They want to know your weaknesses so they can control it.
Okay, what about
That's
Mike?
part of it. Yeah,
part of it?
Definitely. I mean, I think you're dealing, like Eric was talking about, the being out of work 1 week and then working for a month and then being out of work for 3 months. I mean, you're dealing with that on a daily basis. I mean, that's a daily actor's life.
You just need to be like Clifton and get your own series.
Well, that's
even
the
after that,
ultimate. That'd be wonderful. I mean,
eventually a series goes off the air, and the very nature of the entertainment industry is one of insecurity, of disappointment and letdown. That's why so many people, even big successful stars, when they're asked what would they tell a young person trying to get into show business, most first answers will be, try another business. Because this thing is really, it could destroy the person who's not strong because of its nature.
We thought you were all having so much fun, Clifton.
It's hard work.
Come on now, come on.
Fun.
A few hours a day, walk in front of a camera, live the high life.
Are
the rest
you
of the
kidding? You obviously have a warped concept about what we're doing. No, I'm just teasing you, Bob.
Sure.
The fact is, it's 12-hour days, and the moments in front of the camera are long and hard, and it's just grueling work on your feet, memorization, early morning, late nights, and the moments of glamour are so few and far between. I mean, that special that you do, the awards show, when you come out in a wonderful dress or a suit, and
I'm just dressed like Gail over here.
Well, those moments are not often, and those are great and glamorous, but the rest is hard work.
Hard work.
It is.
You never see Dustin Hoffman sitting at home, or when he was starting out, wondering what he's going to do to pay the rent. You only see in the magazines when things are going the best, and even then things aren't going the best. They appear to be going the best for the actor or actress.
But when you make it, why do people risk it?
To drugs.
I mean, some of the biggest people, once they get there, and it looks like they got enough money to sock it away, live off the interest, they still risk it with drugs.
They probably don't feel comfortable with themselves. It might be like you were talking before about doing television. It's great. It's easy. It is not. I'm doing The Bronx Zoo. It's a new Ed Asner TV series that's premiering on Channel 4. Plugging myself.
Okay, that's fine.
Anyway, so I'm in front of a camera. I have a sandbag here. I have to throw a basketball against the wall. A prop man is throwing it back to me. I have to look into the camera, stay into the eye, read the lines, do this. It's like patting your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time. It's very difficult. And you have to make it look easier else you're out of there, because there's 50,000 people right behind you waiting to take that place. Mm-hmm. You have to look like it's easy.
Very often, in order to unwind, rather than choose to get drunk, because a lot of people don't, they'd rather heighten their psychological state by using mind-altering drugs. This is because their normal state of mind is not satisfactory to them. They're not comfortable with that condition. It's not a happy thing necessarily. I found very often, a lot of celebrities, big stars, are just not happy. Very often it's a question of insecurity. They're reached a certain level and they don't think that they are really as good as all their reviews have said. And so they have to live with a lie. And living with that lie causes them to become dependent on other things. And then there are others who are very secure, but who just are lonely in their lives. And in order to fill up the space and the loneliness, they get high. There are others who are just like a party and want the life to keep going. So they'll invite folks over and get them high, and whenever you got some dope, there's always a party. You can always find some people who say, yeah, I'll do your dope.
I see Michael there nodding his head.
Yeah, Christian, what you're talking about is so true, because you're dealing a lot with self-image,
right.
and that, I think that has a lot to do with it. And you're also dealing in a world that is extremely competitive. I mean, even your friends, sometimes you get into the bad habit, fellow actors, of going up and really just asking, how are you? You want to know how they are. And they start naming their credits, everything they've done, in the past 2 months or whatever.
Well, you get to feeling like you're not a human being, you're a resume.
Yeah, you can if you're not careful.
Well, there's that old story about the actor who came home and found his wife in bed with his best friend who was also an actor. And he says, well, I don't believe this. He says, what are you doing? He says, well, I got a Carson show coming up, and then we got a movie of the week. Yeah, the fact is that these things cause people to lean on something that can make them feel a little better about themselves or their condition in life or the industry they're in or the life situation, the environment. And what I say is, yes, life is beautiful without that if we have the right focus, if we have the right foundation. And for me, that's in the Christian ethic. It's in Christianity. It's in faith in God. Let me put it that way. That's the important thing for me.
What I was going to say, and you were talking about, I don't know why I'm remembering this, but let's talk about an actor who has wonderful reviews all the time, great movies, everything like that, and they get that one bad review.
And it does them in.
It can sometimes do that to the men. I don't know why, whether after a while maybe people start to believe that characters that they play, and they feel unhappy when they feel normal. There's a lot of adrenaline going through the body when those lights are on. Like right now, I'm sure we're all feeling surges of energy. And, if you came up here, you'd feel it too. We'd all feel like a surge of energy floating through.
No, I'm not getting paid here. You give me some money, I'll show you a surge of energy. No, I'm not kidding.
Saying? And some people, when the lights go down, they're hooked on that energy.
Yeah.
We need to learn to calm down and cool out. It's that adrenaline that feels so good. This is a wonderful high that we're feeling.
Yeah, I agree with Gail. When I finished doing my first movie, I had the lead in it, and every day was a high on the set without doing any drugs at all. It was a complete high to be there with 20 people out there and a camera and the whole thing.
Yeah.
I realized for the first time the reason that I think people get hooked on drugs and hooked on partying when they're not working is to try to get that high back again. And they surround themselves with people who are going to tell them, you were great then, you were great then, and they continue telling them how great you were 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago when you're not getting work now. And that you still want to keep that high.
That's right.
And so people are feeding you. They're feeding you
ego gratification.
Yeah, that's it.
It's such a wonderful buzz to be an actor and to be respected and to be performing and working and having that checking account and the credit card and the house in the hills. And
Well, let me say 2 things. One, I know a lot of successful actors who don't do drugs at all, and who are happy in their lives. And I think that too often we look at it and we tend to lump all performers into that one bag. I know musicians who do not smoke grass. How about that? I know a lot of guys who have wonderful family lives and who are faithful to their wives and actually live upright, upstanding, good citizenship kinds of lives, and I think they need to be applauded.
Okay, we're going to get to that.
Absolutely.
Give him a hand.
Absolutely.
That does happen.
Hi, this is Bob Larson. What happens to babies of mothers who use drugs? Father Paul heads a hospice where people come to die. Recently, he was brought a baby whose mother was an addict.
Just before Christmas, we had a little baby admitted who was 3 months old. Had a perfect little 3-month-old body, but it had a very enlarged head. The head had only one eye up in the right corner, and then a nose-mouth orifice in the lower left corner, and an ear over by the neck. And it was born from a mother who'd been on drugs.
We must win the war on drugs for babies like this. Enlist now with your gift of $25 or more. Write Box 36A, Denver, Colorado, 80236. Together, we can win this war. One mother, one baby at a time. Let's make sure no more babies enter this world addicted and deformed. That's Box 36A, Denver, 80236.
This is the Central Coast's Christian Radio, KKMC.
Gonzales is Bob Larson. I'm declaring war on drugs. Together, you and I can win this war. One mother, one...
You're on television. How can you ever sell copies of the National Enquirer?
Well, what sold most recently for me was the uniqueness of my situation, the fact that I happen to be a minister while I'm playing a minister on television. And that's an interesting story, but I think the reason that people glorify and aggrandize the drug scene is because those who don't do them are dull, sort of normal people. They're just like everybody else next door. And they're not as interesting to the public as those who have scandalous lives, you see. The public is interested in those people who do the things that they're perhaps not willing or afraid to do, or that they have better sense than doing, you see. And that's why they glorify it. That's why they print it up so much.
Yeah, so because you're all a bunch of eccentrics.
Well, they're more interesting.
Yeah, right.
You know, let's look at the story of Christ. You know, the role of Judas is a real interesting role. Right. You know what I mean? I'm not interested in playing it, but in that story, there's the guy who's betrayal, you know, and it tears him up inside, and so he's so overwrought that he goes and commits suicide, you know, and there's 30 pieces of silver. So, you know, it's the interesting part.
Who was faithful, beloved John?
It's the Oscar-winning part. It's the part that everybody wants to watch, you know, but John.
Yeah, Gail?
What I was going to say is I think that because they paint such a beautiful picture of how everyone, the beautiful people and everything like that, and people want to know that this person is normal, they have problems, just like everybody has problems. And to see a big star in trouble.
You got problems? Like the rest of us?
Yeah, sure. I have problems. Some need to pay the rent. You know, my car needs to be registered. I need to get up earlier in the daytime.
Yeah, but the rest of us are registering Hondas, and you're registering Rolls.
No, I'm registering a Honda Civic.
Honda. Bonnie, you have someone else out there?
Yes, I do. Clifton, I have a question for you. You were an actor when you were doing drugs, and you were an actor when you stopped doing drugs. How hard was it to stop when you were with your friends that were doing drugs?
Well, that's mighty hard, because when you kick drugs, you got to kick drug friends. Unfortunately, because they're not interested in stopping, you know, and so they're going to keep going. And if you keep hanging around with them, you'll go back to it. I had to change my life completely. I had to change location. I had to change friends, my way of thinking. Complete change was in order. And I thank God for the help that He gave me in making that change possible.
Could you have done it without God?
No, I tried once. I tried 3 or 4 or 5 times without Him. And perhaps, let me not say this now in that way, because it is not to denigrate or demean at all clinics where I think a person can achieve freedom from drugs. But I found that the motives within a human being, now, I just believe it on faith, that God can transform the reasons that you did the drugs in the first place and make your life so much happier that you don't need them. And He's done it for me. And, I prove it out, 6 years. So that's one of my reasons. I think that clinics and the faith in God is what a person needs. I think a strong foundation, a human being who gets back gets back to the roots. You know, if you pull a tree up from the earth and it doesn't have the earth around it that it needs, that caused its growth, then it's not going to grow as it should. And I feel the root of human existence is its creator, and I believe that to be God.
Okay. You mentioned earlier, Mike, a strong family upbringing, the way that you were brought up as having been instrumental. Is that not part of Hollywood? Because we hear so much about the breakup of the home, multiple marriages, latchkey, wayward kids.
Yeah. You know,
is that part of what happens?
Well, I think what is happening now, especially in reference to latchkey kids, I mean, I think we're entering, and we have entered a very crucial area of time for us. I mean, I think that family life, family units, family relationships are so extremely important that if you have a solid foundation, you know, and the love of your family based in your religion, and in my case, in Christ, you really can help each other through the trying times. And in this case, I think what has happened, and the way I've seen it, is that family units are being disrupted. We've allowed, I think, a lot of times to have our family units disrupted, and we're not giving each other the kind of support that's going to help you for the rest of your life.
All right, I want to move on to point number 2, and that is life on the screen. Now, President Reagan isn't the only one who gets the impression Hollywood is portraying drugs as a normal part of human conduct. Dope has been smoked in movies like The Big Chill, The Breakfast Club, Beverly Hills Cops. Has Hollywood gone one toke over the line and actually encouraged substance abuse by such casual portrayals? That's the issue we want to deal with in the next few moments. Now, you know, if only a few stars smoked a few joints on the screen, perhaps no one would say anything. But some say that drug portrayal in movies has gone too far. Hollywood has stepped over the line. Your own thoughts on that? Has Hollywood gone too far? Is the corner being turned? What is the attitude of the film community, of the actors, in terms of how drugs are portrayed in the street? We're obviously a long way from Dennis Hopper and Easy Rider, you know, going back almost 20 years ago. Where is it at now? First of all, has it gone too far? And is it being corrected? Gail Box.
I think that they want to portray reality on the screen, when in fact it is a vicious cycle that's happening. People go to the movies and say, well, that's what's going on, so I'll do it. And they film what's going on, so it's back and forth. They support, one supports the other.
Well,
I think that they should change the film industry and show that things don't have to go that way. But then the reality is gone. You see what I'm saying?
Well, reality. Take about last night. See the film?
Yes.
Young lady smoking a joint, mellowing herself out. Take The Big Chill.
Yeah.
Bill Hurt snorting a line of coke.
Yeah.
It's reality. He did
Yes.
it. That's the character. Do we have to see it? I don't want to see it. Personally,
Then
I don't want it to be there.
But I'm just saying, it's like in the old movies, if you saw the old Joan Crawford movies, to walk to another room, it was all around a cigarette. Yet and still, they don't have ads on TV anymore, but people still smoke. They show billboards, or they may have the advertisement in magazines, but they don't show it on television. But people still smoke, and smoking's becoming more popular in movies again.
Well, okay, let's get it down to you.
Okay.
There's a character in the film.
All right.
She uses drugs.
As a matter of fact, I just got a movie, so I'm going to be in prison. I'm going to be doing a movie in prison, a new Rebecca De Mornay movie.
You have to portray the ingestion of drugs in a film.
Right.
And in the film, the character likes it. And there's no reprehensible aspect to it ever shown. The tragedy of it is never portrayed in the film. It's just the usage itself. Would you play the character?
Yes.
Well, that's because you're broke and have a Honda.
I'll tell you what.
Would you play the character?
Well, it depends on what my agent can get.
Well, that's an honest answer.
If I was in control of the movie, I had written the movie, or I was the star of the movie, and I can say, I don't agree with the director, but if I'm just the co-star, or it's my first film, I'm doing it.
But you're in control of your life.
Yes.
And you're in control of somebody who pays a ticket to see that movie and walk in there And you can say somebody else will take the role, but we all keep passing the buck in society like that?
It's a difficult question. I don't know if I can answer
It's a
it.
very
Mike,
hard.
would you do it?
I'll tell you, I have done it. Okay, because I think, and I really feel that actors should take the opportunity to play all kinds of roles. Okay, that's my personal opinion. I think that you limit yourself as an artist if you start saying, "Well, I'm not going to do this type of role." It's such a hard question.
Well, are you going to, if somebody offers you a role of a pedophile and a child molester, are you going to play that?
Absolutely. Because it's very important for the artist, okay, to develop artistically and not to be afraid. See, once wait a minute. Once you start,
Eric, let Mike finish. Then
I'm just saying, once you start being afraid as an artist and saying, "No, I'm not going to do that type of role," unless it's going to affect you psychologically, or mess up your mind or whatever, then I really think that you start closing yourself off creatively.
Yeah, you're worried about artistic creativity. I'm worried about some 15-year-old kid watching that on the screen. Eric Larson?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question. I had that happen to me in the movie that I just finished. It's called 1968, and of course, everyone envisions 1968 like Easy Rider. There's lots of rock and roll and lots of drugs and lots of long hair. I, never having smoked pot before, had to do it in the movie. I feel as an actor, it is your job to hold up a mirror to society. Shakespeare said it 300 years ago. That is an actor's job. And I did not write the script. If I could have written the script, I could have said something about, "I've smoked pot, this bad thing happened to me." It's not gratuitous in the movie at all. It's just, it's shown, and it's there for the purpose, whoever wants to interpret it. It's up to the...
You see, excuse me, you see you're holding up a mirror, but you're holding up a role model, too. You can't get away from it.
That's true. That's true. You are holding up a role model. Unfortunately, that's the dichotomy with Hollywood.
Clifton, you want to jump in this?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think?
Well, two things. See, because I'm totally sympathetic, having had a 20-year career, from Broadway, Tony Award nominations, and all kinds of roles I've played in television, movies for television, and 3 television series. I know what you go through. I know what an actor goes through. And I would have done almost anything at one point, because it's a part, and I'm an actor, and my job is to play parts, and this is the way the part is written, and it's real, and there's somebody out there like this, and we can show them life, and we hold a mirror up to society, but that was then, and this is now. And now I've got children, and now I'm concerned about what they see, and now I know I'm a role model because people have written to me saying, "Thank you for the role model you're setting on Amen." People of all ages, of all races. And now, as an actor, I'm first a human being trying to be a part of the society and make a contribution. And now it is not worth it to me. Wait a minute. Let me finish. It is no longer worth it to me to sacrifice my own principles for a part. Now, I am not saying that to put down anybody, or to say you have no principles. I'm saying that as a part of my personal principles, I'm concerned about the image I portray, and I wouldn't play a part of somebody who did dope. I would say, "Oh, thank you, you need somebody else for this part." I said, or change the part. Because I'm not going to put that out there, because I've been a junkie before, you understand?
Yeah.
And I know that when I saw Easy Rider, I felt like it's all right for me to do dope.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
And I remember that. Mm-hmm. And now that I've gotten free, I realize that these influences do affect people in society, particularly young, impressionable minds, and they're going to watch me, and if they like me, think I'm terrific. "Hey, man, you're fabulous." I remember the black community after Superfly came out, and everybody wanted some blow, and it was open, every bathroom door at every nightclub you ever went to. You opened the door, and all you heard was... women's room, men's room, everybody was snorting coke because Superfly said it was fabulous and he got away with it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here to tell you, Superfly was a fool. And I was Superfly. I spent over $50,000 one year, 1 6-month period, just on cocaine. And I'm here to tell you that's madness. And I was almost dead as a result of it. I'm not going to play that kind of a part because I know it affects people. And I don't care if my career don't go. But you see, some other people are more concerned about career than other things.
Well, Clifton, you've had 2 televisions, 3 television shows. What about us who are just starting to get out there? We don't have that prestige that you have.
Honey,
I don't
if
have
I
a family.
never ever get another television show or ever act in another play, I still wouldn't. Because it's more important to project, for me, as a human being, more important to project the kind of image that will be responsible and responsive to a child or a young person who is looking for the answers in life. Now, let me say the other thing I was going to say, which is the other side of the coin. If indeed, in the movie that I am asked to do this, one learns of the dangers of imbibing in drugs, and I am one of those people who is a failure or am the brunt of the lesson, and the message that comes through, that is projected, is this is wrong. For instance, a movie where the father was portrayed as molesting his daughter, okay? And everybody saw how heinous and horrible a crime that really is, how insidious it is as the relationship developed, and how it destroyed so many people's lives, including that poor young girl. Then I think it's got meaning, because then I would play the pedophile. I would play that part, because I would show by my being in that part that something was wrong with it. Now, see, under the right circumstances, those parts can be played. In other words, if you're doing the story of Christ, somebody's got to play Judas. And so I might play it, because it's not about what Judas does. The story is the glory of Christ.
But do some... Go ahead. Maybe...
So the context is probably the all-important question. What is the context in which a woman is asked to remove her clothes?
At the same time, it's not just, let's get away from acting for a second. You're a lawyer. You're new at the law firm. You have to make sacrifices against your character in order to get a little higher up on the ladder to make a living for yourself. I believe it's the same thing when you're starting out. Clifton has been in this business for 20 years. I've been in it for about 6, and now things are just starting to happen. If a part is offered to me, to smoke pot in a movie or something, I've got to take it. I've got to make a living. I've got to take it. And whether...
Who says you got to take it?
But after the cameras go down, you don't have to do it. That's just it. It's a part. It's fake. It's not real. I wish they would make an announcement at the beginning of the movies, like they always say,
Disclaimer.
Don't talk, don't throw, don't be a pig. But they sell candy. You know what I'm saying? And they can say, like they show on HBO, this movie contains subject matter for children. You should be in bed, and if you're watching this, you will be punished.
See, that's like this is the nature of the beast. I mean,
they should have an announcement at the beginning of the movie. You know these characters are fictitious. Do not try this. But this is based, you know what I'm saying?
See, for me, this is where the responsibility of the parents come in. I really believe that you cannot overestimate the relationship between the parent and the child. This is a parent's responsibility. I truly believe that.
But you can't pass the buck on the parents either.
No, I'm not passing the buck. I'm not passing the buck. In my response to what Clifton was saying, I truly believe that the characters that you portray, it's an individual and personal choice as an artist, and you have to make that nobody else can make that for you.
But you understand, the rest of us in America who watch you on the screen are influenced by what you do, and the younger and the more impressionable the mind, the greater the tendency is to emulate the role model. Do you forget that you're role models? I mean, do you forget it? Do you remember? You are stars to us. You are people who are larger than life.
What about...
You're on that screen up there, and kids are looking at you.
What about monster movies? I mean, you know, you can explain to children when the parents take the children to a movie, that is not real up on the screen. That is fake. It's for your imagination. The same thing with people using drugs in the movie. Mike's right. It is up to the parent and your friends. You should have a strong religious background.
Does this mean you're going to do nude scenes?
It depends.
Huh?
It depends.
Yeah?
On the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't
What does it depend
all
on?
of a sudden, out of nowhere, just twirl and torchete and take my clothes off. It would depend on how tasteful the movie is. This scene is, I wouldn't take off my clothes for taking off my clothes sake.
What's tasteful about doing dope? Can it ever be tasteful?
I see what you're saying on the screen, but the same thing about a nude scene. I mean,
this is tough to defend.
It is.
Yeah, you got a tough time.
At the same time, I think the bottom line is drugs are a part of life. They're bad. Movies are made. They're going to be made from here until the end of time.
Yeah, all kinds of movies.
And nudity is not bad.
It's going to be shown. It's going to be shown. And it's up to the people watching it. It's up to the responsible people. You're watching somebody shoot heroin.
If they offered you hundreds of thousands of dollars to do a porno movie, would you do that?
No.
Why?
Why not?
It's against my principles.
Oh.
Because there isn't anything positive in showing it. It's like you mentioned, if you're an addict, if you're a pedophile, and it shows badly of what can happen, then there's a purpose for showing it, and that's fine.
Or it depends. Say if you're doing a movie and it is about a porno star.
No, we're just saying porno movie.
I don't see it.
You don't want to do it because it'd be bad for your career. You don't want it on your resume. But if there were enough bucks?
No.
You see, let me suggest, Eric, here you are. This is Eric Larson for the radio audience. Good looking, clean cut. I mean, any mother would want their daughter to marry you. And you're sitting here, you don't do... Nice looking guy, huh, girls, right? Oh, yeah, well... and I sense your spirit. I feel you as a person. And really, a good straight shooter. A nice, clean-cut, nice guy is just trying to make it to Hollywood. This is the real you. And the real you doesn't need drugs, and you're not going to do drugs, and you're going to tell people not to do drugs. But America doesn't see this Eric Larson. They never see it. They never see it. This is not the guy they're going to read about. This isn't the guy they're going to think of Eric Larson in terms of what they see on the screen. And if you're smoking dope on the screen, to them, that's Eric Larson. You guys forget that?
But that's out of my hands. That is out of my hands. What people think is going on with me. It's like a pro player is any star is put up on a pedestal, and it's out of his hands what other people think. He can choose. I'm not going to do this because people will think this. I'm not going to do this and such and such. All I'm saying is that you try to do the best you can. And whether people like you or not, it's out of your hands whether they like you or not.
Yeah, but you're not a plumber. You're not a carpenter. It's not just a job.
That's right. And I take the responsibility seriously, and that's why I personally do not do drugs. And if people wanted to come to me and say, Eric, I look at you, I respect you, I've seen your work, I respect you as a human being, tell me about drugs. I can honestly say I've never done them. I hope to God I never will.
But they're never going to get the chance except on a forum like this.
And that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah. But I'm still worried about what the kid's going to see in the screen. We'll get back to that. Bonnie, you have somebody out there who wants to ask something?
Good evening, Gail. My name is Clyde Ramstead. You were speaking about your prestige. You know, you're worried about your prestige. Hey, what about mine? I'm not in that industry. I service photocopiers, okay? Now, I have a choice. Man, I can go in there and do lousy, shoddy work, and I can go in there and if I wanted to smoke a joint out in the car before I go in, I have that choice. But I won't do it. My occupation, I have as many choices in my occupation as you guys do in yours.
That's right.
And you know, I just can't agree with that.
When you're first starting out, wait, let me explain something to you. When you're first starting out and you get a contract and you get a part in a movie, and your manager or your agent or whoever's doing your contract for you say you're going to get the minimum because you've never done anything before, but the next time around you'll get more money. So you're in there and you're working and you're going up on the auditions and you're doing until you get to a level where you can pick your scripts. People will send you and you'll say, I don't want to do a scene where I'm doing drugs.
Gail, you can pick your scripts from the beginning. You just may not get the success that you want. What you're saying is you can't pick your scripts and decide not to do it until you reach a level where you can pick and they won't throw you out. No, you can pick your scripts in the beginning. The only thing is you may pass your career along the way. The thing is, you have to make the decision. Am I going to pick and choose what I'm going to show to my children, or am I going to do this Playboy centerfold and then explain it to them later? Or, you know what I'm saying, am I early in my career going to make a decision that's going to maybe put me out of contention for this movie because I've decided that I don't want to play this part. I don't want to get in the bed with this guy and take off my clothes in this thing. I don't think it's the right taste. And even though it's a big movie with Steven Spielberg, I think I'm going to decide not to do this scene, and so I'm choosing not to do this movie. That's not to say you won't get another one. In fact, I'm here to tell you after 20 years in the entertainment industry, people will respect you a lot more for the stand you take on morality than for those who choose not to.
Mike Gomez wants to say
Clifton,
something.
as I said earlier, and I'll repeat it because I think for me it's very true. It's a personal, an individual choice that artist has to make.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
And you know, in regards to, I know you've been in the business 20 years, you're a wonderful artist, you know, and I really, really do love your work, from Pearly Victorious to everything else. You've had a lot of experience in the business, but let me just ask you, if when you were starting in the business, did you in fact stop and say, this is not the role I want to do, I'm not going to do it? Did you actually do that, or what?
I did it on a couple of roles, but I must confess, for the different reasons. I didn't have the moral sensitivity that I have now. I wasn't as mature or mentally ready, you know. If I had the spiritual state of mind that I have now, then I would never want to let go of God's hand in order to get successful in career. And by saying letting go of his hand, I mean going against what I think are honest, good, moral principles in order to do a part. Now, I agree it's an individual thing. I'm not trying to legislate morality. I'm not into that. I'm not that kind of a preacher, okay? Or actor, for that matter. I think a person's going to, you know, they're going to make movies, and some of us are going to do this one, someone's not going to do that. I happen to say and believe that the career that a person builds is more sturdy, more durable, if from the very beginning you choose to do the right kinds of things. Now, as Mike says, what that right kind of thing is often an individual thing. That's where personal ethics come into play. You know, and so I'm offering to you a personal ethic. I'm not passing judgment on yours. I'm not condemning you for doing whatever you want. To smoke a dope in the movie, hey.
Okay, I want to get to someone else in the audience out here. You have someone else out there, buddy?
Yes, Kent? No, my name's Kent. I'm Kent from Winter Park.
I get confused about who I am, too.
Okay, I have a few things I'd like to say. From an audience perspective, it seems that our three younger stars, it just seems that there seems to be a big money issue involved there in the success of their career. And just a Bible verse comes to mind. In the book of James, it says, from pride and selfish ambition comes every form of evil. And you set yourself up for that. And I think, too, by taking drug roles, you eliminate yourself from the possibilities of standing for the fight for life, standing for the fight against drugs. You miss those 5-second spots on the television say, don't do drugs, because it becomes a hypocritical statement on your part.
Do you think you would feel like a hypocrite doing an anti-drug commercial after you had just played the role on the screen? Mike Gomez?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all, because... No.
You guys, I'm sorry, but you all are making artistic distinctions that we, the public... Are you making those distinctions? I'm not making it. I'm not trying to beat up on you.
And in a way, I agree with them here, in a way.
do?
Yeah, because I think the public, first of all, is not naive enough not to realize that this that they see on the screen is fiction. This is pretend. And for the artist, it has to be that. That reality for the artist behind the in front of the camera is a different reality differently than for the person sitting in the seat.
Okay.
This is Bob Larson. I'm declaring war on drugs. Together, you and I can win this war, one mother, one baby at a time. Help me furnish the Mother Hale home in Harlem, where drug-addicted babies can be rebonded with their mothers. Will you heed Mother Hale's plea for help?
The mother's having a second chance. She made a mistake. All of us can make mistakes. Imagine being given a chance for the second time to take her child and have it and live like a human being, not out begging for money or anything like that. This is wonderful. This is God's work, and I know He's going to open it. Not only asking them, begging them.
Enlist now in the war on drugs by sharing your gift of $25 or more. Write Box 36A, Denver, Colorado, 80236. In response, I'll send you my special cassette, Winning the War on Drugs. Let's win the war, one mother, one baby at a time. Hi, this is Bob Larson. What happens to babies of mothers who use drugs? Father Paul heads a hospice where people come to die. Recently, he was brought a baby whose mother was an addict.
Just before Christmas, we had a little baby admitted who was 3 months old. Had a perfect little 3-month-old body, but it had a very enlarged head. The head had only one eye up in the right corner, and then a nose-mouth orifice in the lower left corner, and an ear over by the neck. It was born from a mother who'd been on drugs.
We must win the war on drugs for babies like this. Enlist now with your gift of $25 or more. Write Box 36A, Denver, Colorado, 80236. Together, we can win this war. One mother, one baby at a time. Let's make sure no more babies enter this world addicted and deformed. That's Box 36A, Denver, 80236.
I don't think Hollywood's all to blame because they show people movies they want to see. But the individual actors themselves taking a stance. Clifton, you have an influence on other actors. You 3 actors up there that are aspiring to, continue on in your career on a one-on-one basis, talking to other actors going, hey, I turned that part down because I have moral stances that I want to take. That's what's going to change Hollywood.
Okay, I want us to move on to the next point. I think the man's right. From my
The drugs campaign, and sports figures and all sorts of people across the country are dealing with the drug issue, and so the industry is dealing with it in the same way. It will reflect the attitude of society, and if society becomes anarchistic and open and mad and free love, that's what you're going to see in the industry.
Well, you know, let me just hang on for a second, because he's just introduced the next aspect of the dialogue this evening. I want to talk about life and real life and what Hollywood is and isn't doing. And I want to mention again, because we have a huge audience out there on 150 stations across the International Broadcasting Network, a couple of million folks listening who are not watching you. And I want to distinguish the voices again. Mike Gomez, recently co-starring with Clint Eastwood in Heartbreak Ridge. Thank you for being with us tonight. Gail Boggs, who's...
I've never done 42nd Street.
Oh,
Thank God.
somebody told me you had.
No,
Well, what have you done on Broadway?
Amos Behavior.
Okay.
And I've worked at the Public Theater, done a lot of things at the Public Theater. And I'm out here and I'm doing television out here and film, but I've seen 42nd Street.
Yeah, well, somebody told me that. Well, anyway, Gail Boggs.
Cat those feet on 42nd Street. I just stopped you. I'm sorry, my ego.
Resident eccentric tonight, anyway. Eric Larson, who has been in Colby and Dynasty, and more recently has a new film coming out called 1968, which will be out when? I said 68. It won't. When will it be out?
This year in '87, it'll be out.
Okay. And Clifton Davis, Reverend Gregory on the new NBC series, Amen. Okay, Gail, you can pick that back up now, because this is what I want to talk about what the industry is or isn't going to do and what you individually are or not going to do to change the whole thing.
All right, say if they still have the drug movies, would it be better that they show what would happen or what happens to someone who does use drugs.
Great.
Instead of making it euphoric and a positive thing, like you said about Superfly and the whole thing. If they're going to do movies about drugs, show what happens to these people who are dealing with the drugs and end up in prison.
Yeah, we're all going to say amen to that. So
that's what I would love to do movies like
is
that.
it going to sell at the box office? Let's be serious.
If you have a good writer. See, you need good writers to write about this, good directors, good actors. You know, they like you said, if an Indiana Jones movie will sell out, bet you by golly you'll have 50 more that are terrible just to emulate and copy the big seller.
Well, let me tell you what we did this afternoon. Talk Back with Bob Larson, which is our live best satellite 5-day-a-week 2-hour talk show, has committed itself, along with the Entertainment Industries Council, an organization you may or may not be familiar with, to do something about the rating system in America. And I launched this afternoon a nationwide write-in campaign. And Brian Dyack, who's president and founder of the Entertainment Industries Council, is concerned that the rating system be amended to be more specific. And he would like to see an essay referring to substance abuse placed after the rating to indicate to moviegoers, and particularly parents, that substance abuse is depicted in a glamorizing fashion in that particular film. And we're determined to do it, and I launched this afternoon what we're calling Put the Heat on Hollywood campaign. We want to put the major studios on notice, Mr. Jack Valenti of the Motion Picture Association on notice, that we want the rating system changed. Now, I want to know from your standpoint as actors and actresses, does it bother you? Do you think someone like me and Mr. Dyack, who after all is an industry spokesperson, do you think we're trying to censor what you're doing? Do you feel squeamish at all that if you're going to play a drug role in a film that glamorizes the abuse of substances, that we want an SA after that rating, Mike Gomez?
It doesn't bother me in the least. I think, as a matter of fact, it's an excellent idea.
I think it's a marvelous
Gail, do you like the idea too?
Excellent.
Eric, do you like the idea?
Yeah, you can't argue that fact at all.
Okay, Clifton, do you see any problems with that?
Absolutely good idea.
Okay, do you think the industry is likely to go for it? How much resistance do you think we're going to run into here? Are people going to say, hey, we got a rating system already, why mess around with it?
The rating system is going through a change anyway. With the new Mickey Rourke film coming out has been rated X.
Oh, yeah.
Unless it's going to change, and there's a big uproar about that.
Right.
So the rating system is changing anyway now. What I think is going to make the biggest change is if the people out there listening and the people here tonight just say no tomorrow or whenever you're offered. If you can just start saying no and start the ball rolling, it's people out there that make the change. Reflecting with the gentleman who was a Vietnam War vet, it was the people who made the change in the late 60s, early 70s. It wasn't the government. It's not Hollywood. Doesn't make the rules. You make the rules, and Hollywood follows the rules.
You must have some kind of a brat pack or whatever that you run around with young Hollywood actors and actresses. What's their attitude about drugs? Has it changed?
Well, the people I hang around with don't. There's a few. I have two different groups. There is one group of friends of mine who do drugs occasionally, recreationally. There's another group that doesn't do drugs, and I'm unclear as to what the question is.
Well, my question is, what is their general attitude towards substance abuse? I mean, because let's face it, 15, 20 years ago, it was a cool thing. A decade ago, it was still a hip thing to turn on. It was not considered reprehensible. The peer pressure, in fact, was to do it. Where does the peer pressure standard come in?
A friend of mine who is in the group that does drugs occasionally, the rest of us have gotten together and talked what we should do for this guy because he's starting to go down. He's losing himself. Okay, and we're getting together ourselves, figuring out what's the best thing we can do. We don't want to lose him as a friend. We don't want to insult him, but at the same time, we want to get him off drugs.
Clifton Davis, does that encourage you? Is that a lot different what it was than when you were in the industry 15 years ago?
Oh, for sure. Definitely different. There were a lot of people who, behind the scenes, glamorized drugs. I mean, we had a whole rap that we could tell you about cocaine that said it was not physically habit-forming. But now we know that it is not only psychologically habit-forming in the most devastating fashion and in the most insidious, creeping sort of way, but we know that it's also physically debilitating. It has been linked with heart failure, as in Len Bias's case, and even the first use of it can kill. And so now what's happening is different when we find young people who have gotten that message that some of us have sent, that says this is so devastating that someone would tell their friends, hey, let's do something for our friend who's using drugs.
What's the worst thing
I'm glad for that in your life.
What's the worst thing any of you have seen drugs do to a friend or an associate in Hollywood?
Kill.
Kill?
Yeah.
You want to give us the case in point with maybe not mentioning the names or being too specific?
A friend of mine, well, not necessarily in Hollywood, but back in New York City, a close friend of mine who I used to, talk to, at first, was doing it, I guess, socially, and then when everyone really talked about helping him out and putting him in a center or a program or whatever, pretended not to do it and, became quiet and removed, and then after a while disappeared and died. What I was going to say about out here, though, what I really, really, since I've moved out here, I love hearing that a lot of people say they're on the program. At first I laugh because they say, oh, it's the hippest thing out here, everyone's on the program. And I said, what program? What channel? When I first moved, but it is Alcoholics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, drug abuse, whatever. And I think that's wonderful. If that's a popular place to go and hang out, it's wonderful.
Okay. The worst thing you've seen?
The worst thing that I've seen with drugs is someone, a very, very pretty young woman that I had met, a girl, actually, she wasn't really a woman, being dusted on PCP. Mm-hmm. It was truly sad. Here was a beautiful human being who couldn't think straight, couldn't speak straight, and this was something that she had brought upon herself, and it was, I don't know if it was like a one-time thing, but it was the saddest thing that I've ever seen, is to see this life that is, on the road to tragedy, basically. I mean, something like PCP, of course, stays in your chromosomes and whatnot, and you get flashbacks and the whole thing. It was just horrible.
Eric, a reflection?
Well, from what I've seen is basically nothing hardcore like death or anything, but I've seen people, actor friends of mine, just stay in bed for days at a time. And
still get up.
Well, they just, they're hungover. The drugs, they still in their system, whether it's doing downers. They're doing downers, whether they've taken Quaaludes or whatever, and they've missed on auditions. They've missed going out with their friends who could possibly maybe help them get a job somewhere. They've taken themselves out of the race. And it's not just actors, but it's anybody else. It's anybody out there who does whatever, any business. You do drugs, you take yourself out of the race, and nobody wants to lose.
Clifton, the worst thing you've seen drugs do to someone? Maybe yourself.
Well, I've seen so many horror stories, I could just go on for hours, but I guess my story was pretty bad. I almost died. I almost OD'd, deliberately. And it was only the grace of God that saved my life. And I was skin and bones. I'd wasted away. I was paranoid. I had lost auditions. I had gotten blacklisted by so many major corporations out here. It was absurd. Everybody behind the scenes knew that I was a freebase junkie. It was horrible. And there was no reason, as far as I was concerned, to live until I found God. And then I had a reason to live and something to lean on. But I guess the worst horror story is a brother of mine who used to do drugs with me at the same time that I did. And when I stopped, he didn't. He continued using PCP, and now he's doing time for one night. He was high on PCP, and he pulled a knife on some police officers, and he's now in jail for assault with a deadly weapon. And he still is interested in doing more drugs when he gets out. And I think the greatest horror story is the life that is about to be destroyed because the person won't hear the message that drugs kill. And it's sad to look and see out of a group of 100 high school graduates, 20 will become junkies, 50 of them will try drugs, and maybe 5 of them will die.
Bonnie, you have a question out here in the audience?
I'd like to make a comment. My name is Manuel from East LA. First of all, I'm looking at 4 Generalissimos, actually 5, including you, Mr. Larson. You people have excelled, you have performed. You are the Generalissimos. I'm a grunt. I do not know how to excel. I do not have one basic thing that everybody there has, and that is that you know how to get what you want. Me, I don't. I also don't do drugs, but I've seen people that do drugs in my foxhole, grunts like me, and I'll tell you why they do it. You were talking about the high of performance, of being in front of the lights. You do it to remember. Grunts do it to forget. And when a grunt in East LA, in the ghetto, wherever, sees someone who gets all the best women, all the best drugs, all the best cars, all the best of everything, you people are imitating life. Life never imitates you people. And I'd like to say this, that if I was an actor, I can only relate to it as being a human being, nothing more. But if I was an actor, I would take the role. I would not limit myself to any role, whether it be pornography, topography, or whatever, or whatever. But I will say this, that if anybody here is afraid of what's going on out there, don't turn the TV off. It's your free will to do that if you want to. Don't walk away from it. Because there will always be actors and actresses and people that will portray what you are doing. And it doesn't go the other way. Let's be Americans and let's be free and let's have the guts. Let's have the you-know-whats to do and see what is going on and not shelter ourselves.
I say the guy's a pretty good spokesperson. Agree or disagree with what he's saying. Yeah. A final reflection before this evening is over. I want each of you to know how very grateful I am that you're here. I want you to know how much I respect and admire the fact that you are clean and you are drug-free and you're willing to set that personal example. I have some apprehensions about your artistic philosophy. It's a free country. You're entitled to yours, and I may have a difference of opinion. But I am glad that whatever you do on the screen, at least in your private lives, you are people who are keeping your heads clean and your bodies clean, and I think that for that these people are to be commended, and I appreciate their taking their time here, don't you? Clifton, you're Clifton Davis?
Let me say, I can really dig where the brother's coming from because I haven't been an actor all my life. You might notice I'm black. When I was a little boy, niggers couldn't go a whole lot of places. And I'm talking about real grunts, okay? I'm talking when there was no way out, there was nothing but welfare, and my brothers and sisters didn't have nothing but potatoes to eat, you understand? There were people who worked as maids made more money than my folks. And I didn't know how to get out of there. All I had was books and screen to show me what the other life was about. Until one day I decided I'm not going to live in this project any longer. I don't want to smell pee and beer and vomit in the halls every day of my life. I don't want to step over a drunk to get out into the street to go to school. I don't want to eat sugar sandwich. I don't want to fold up a piece of bread with nothing in it and make like it's lunch while everybody else is eating and all I got is a slice of bread. And they said, "What you eating?" I said, "I'm having a sandwich." I didn't want that anymore. And at some point I decided, I think perhaps I was 12 years old, and I realized that that little white boy sitting next to me got an A just like me. And if he got an A and I got an A, I can have clothes like that just like he does. I can live in that place, and I want to find that place where those people buy those cars, and I want that money that they got. But more than that, I want the substance of life with or without those things. Because I realize that those people who have those things aren't any happier than me. If Marilyn Monroe OD'd on dope and she was a big movie star, then what am I doing it for if I don't have nothing, you know? So the reality is, with or without those things and opportunities in life, you've got to have a life worth living. And it wasn't until I lost every penny, and I'm here to tell you, when I left Hollywood, I lost everything. I mean, I had nothing. I owed the government $40,000. It took me 6 years to pay them, you understand? I mean, all I did was get love offerings from people in churches where I preached, and I was so behind in my taxes the man almost cried when I told him the story why I didn't pay him for 3 years, and they were about to put me in jail. And I tell you, brother, I had nothing until I just let it all go, and I became a grunt again. And you know what? I was happy. Because I had me, and couldn't nobody do nothing about that. You understand? Nobody could take that from me. I was alive, and I stood up for what I want. And because, as far as I'm concerned, I turned my life over to God, somehow the opportunities became real for me again. Only this time, with a good head on my shoulders and not willing to sacrifice other stuff. So, c'est la vie.
Very good. Very good. You know, some years ago, there was a film called Reefer Madness purporting to show what happens to people who smoke marijuana. Characters took a few tokes and a joint, and they went berserk. That movie is seen as an example of ignorance and hysteria regarding the abuse of marijuana. But in the minds of many, the scales have tipped in the other direction. Substance abuse is portrayed as a casual, recreational, private pastime. But nothing actors and entertainers do is really private. They are role models of social and moral fashion. The public made them what they are, and it's the public to whom they're accountable. But they can't win the war on drugs alone. Ultimate power rests in the box office. If the turnstiles are silent when dope is smoked on the screen, that carries a louder message to scriptwriters than any attempt at inter-industry restraint. Hollywood's a money-making machine. Even Madonna can't perform miracles when teamed up with Sean Penn. And their film Bomb costing them and underwriter ex-Beatle George Harrison a pile of money. Why? Because it was a bad movie. And the tale was told by the tickets that were not sold. And the same should be said for films in which substance abuse isn't treated as a tragedy. John Belushi's friends admit they knew he was headed for disaster. Their excuse was they felt helpless to do anything about it. And every one of us who watched his dope jokes on Saturday Night Live bears some guilt for his death. We could have turned off the TV. We could have written the sponsors and producers a letter. We could have called our local stations and protested. We could have sent Aykroyd, Murray, and Belushi the message that good humor is funnier when you're sober. So the next time you see someone on screen turn them up. Hit them where it hurts, in the pocketbook. Send Hollywood a message that clean is good, straight is hip, and that drugs kill. With your help and with God's help, we can tame the Hollywood hive. We can make our entertainment industry America's mirror to the world, an example of what is best about the fun-loving freedoms of this country. It starts with you. It depends on you, America. Whatever these people do or say, you have the ultimate power. It's time that we put the heat on Hollywood. Not everyone on the silver screen has the kind of celluloid responsibility that's been expressed by these people here tonight. Not everyone there is clean in their private life in terms of substance abuse. We need to send Hollywood a message that it's the clean stars and the clean actors and actresses that we want on the screen. We want them to live what they preach in the theater. I want to say a special word of thanks to KPZE for cooperating with us in this special drug dialogue. I want to thank all the stations of the International Broadcasting Network who are airing this program this evening. I want to say thanks to God, because were it not for His grace, I wouldn't be here, and this program wouldn't be possible. And I would not part without making it very plain that without God's help, we're not going to tame the Hollywood high. Without help from on high, we're not going to make Hollywood responsible. Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, the Bible tells us, but spiritual forces of evil that would destroy the entertainment industry, and because it is such a powerful influence after which people emulate their lives, America could be destroyed too. Mike Gomez, Gail Boggs, Eric Larson, Clifton Davis, you've been very special people, and you've been kind to be with us, and I thank you very much, and I'd like you to give them a hand again. Would you please?